Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It's your guy, Boulanger. And up next in this video, we're going to give our take and assessment of the Baltimore Ravens 2023 pre-draft press conference. Um, I wanted to kind of sit back and wait a little bit, kind of listen to the entire press conference and kind of give my take on it as I, listen and learn. And I was going to play a couple of clips, but I decided not to because I'm sure you guys have heard several clip videos from the press conference. So we're just going to give our assessment and keep moving. So the first thing we noticed, and I even know that you guys noticed it because you commented about it in the last comment section of the last video, uh, was the body language. And from my perspective, the body language spoke to being uptight, and the comments spoke to being frustrated. So the question would be, what would the Baltimore Ravens leadership be frustrated about? Well, they would be frustrated about it being April 5th and their quarterback situation not having any answers. They would be frustrated about their roster not being close to being set. And no roster is set at this point, but a lot of rosters, in fact, are already set, and the draft is going to fill in whatever holes that they have. The Baltimore Ravens roster is not set, and they don't have enough draft capital, as we learned from Eric DaCosta, to fill some of those holes. They don't have enough early round draft picks to create any plug and play scenarios, and so, or many plug and play scenarios. So they certainly could be frustrated about that. I think they're frustrated that they have not been able to keep the Ravens name pristine. I think that a lot of the Ravens luster and shine has come off this offseason due to the Lamar Jackson contract scenario. So they could certainly be frustrated about that. And then I think overall, I think they could be frustrated about themselves. I think a lot of their leadership skills, their team building skills have come into question, whether it's been Eric DaCosta team building, whether it's Steve Bisciotti being chief owner, or whether it's John Harbaugh having an inability to, get them to where they need to be as a collective team. I think a lot of that has come into question too. And if we hear the news and the rumors and the scrutiny, then how much more do they hear it? Okay, so I think they could certainly be frustrated about that. So the first thing we notice is that the body language is uptight and the tone is frustration. Okay. One of the most apparent things that we can take from this press conference is that the Ravens and Lamar are not on speaking terms necessarily. It doesn't mean they don't hear from one another. It doesn't mean there's not some check-ins, but speaking terms means we're having conversations, we're in constant communication. I don't believe that's happening, and this press conference kind of leans into that, because when EDC was asked, since Lamar went public with the trade request, has he had an opportunity to speak with him? And he didn't say yes or no, of course. He just simply said, let's make this about the draft. And then the next time a Lamar Jackson question was attempting to be asked, that the guy named Alex was kind of shut down. And so it's very, very clear that it doesn't seem to be like the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson's relationship are is any better or even close at this point. Because the simple answer, if it wasn't in a good situation, the simple answer just would have been, yeah, we've talked and we still like to have him in house. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But not answering the question just creates more questions. But it's apparent to me, and maybe even to some of you, that that relationship is shattered and it may be unrepairable. Okay. Another thing that we noticed from the press conference is the wide receiver position is one that is getting a lot of attention. I think that um, due to the lack of advancements, let's just call it that, in the wide receiver room, whether it has been Rashad Bateman stepping to the forefront as the number one, but going down over the last 2 years, so therefore he was unavailable, whether it was seeing that Devin Duvernay does not have the full skill set to become a number one if need be. I think um, seeing that James Prochet and also Tylan Wallace may not ever be anything more than a fourth or fifth option on a wide receiver corps. I think that those realities are true. And I think the reality that we're going to have to go big or go home at wide receiver, specifically in the draft, I think that's apparent as well because, you know, EDC said in a previous press conference that they're just going to keep swinging. But I think at this point, I think there's a sense of urgency that we can't just keep swinging. We have to hit on some of these picks. Now, I certainly believe that Rashad Bateman has everything he needs to be a number one receiver except health at this point. So I think if he can get healthy and stay healthy, I think that he certainly has number one potential. But I think the wide receiver position is that is one of urgency. And I think that was on full display on yesterday for sure. Um, Another thing or another topic that was super apparent was the conversation or the idea that they could take a quarterback in the first round. Um, I know a couple of you mentioned in the comment section that they just may have been bluffing, or may have just been trying to send a message to Lamar Jackson to create a sense of urgency. But I think by now they know that Lamar is not going to move any faster. He's going to kind of stay at his own pace. And so I don't think they were trying to buff Lamar Jackson at all. I think they were serious about having to draft a quarterback. And the reason why is because here it is, as I'm recording this video on April 6th, they don't have a quarterback under contract. So if you go into the draft and you don't have a quarterback under contract, I think that it's a real situation that you have to get one in the draft. And then to pair that idea, we just now saw some rumors and reports that the Baltimore Ravens are interested or may be interested in Teddy Bridgewater. And so you would need a veteran like Teddy Bridgewater if you foresee you having a really young quarterback in-house. And so you don't need Teddy Bridgewater if Lamar's there and Tyler Huntley is the backup. But if neither one of those guys are under contract and you have to go with a rookie, you're definitely going to need a veteran presence in that quarterback room. And so I don't think they're bluffing at all. I think that the quarterback position is really a position of urgency. It is the most important position on a football team. And the Baltimore Ravens, at their current status, they do not have a quarterback under contract. And so I think that I think that's very apparent. And I think that the quarterback situation is certainly at the forefront of their minds, as we heard yesterday. So I don't think they're bluffing. Another thing that we noticed that we kind of mentioned over the course of some time is that the Baltimore Ravens love picks, and EDC said at least twice, maybe more than twice, that he would love to have some more picks. Okay. And so I think that leans into Patrick Queen being traded and possibly Lamar Jackson being traded. As I stated, that there may be a deal already done. I think that I think that those are the prime candidates because when you look at the Baltimore Ravens roster, you have to trade away assets in order to get draft picks. And because they only have five with no second rounder, and then that third round pick comes way late in that third round, they can't even pair a couple of late round picks to get up into the second round. So trading is really the only option. Okay. Now that could they certainly trade back? Yes. But again, I used the word desperate yesterday in a video, and one of the comments was that the Baltimore Ravens, aren't desperate, but I certainly think they are. Um, I think they're desperate because they don't have a quarterback. I think they're desperate because they don't have the draft capital to move up to get a quarterback or to continue to fill major holes on their roster. And so that does create a sense of desperation. And so, um, I certainly believe they are. But back to what I'm saying. So I think that Patrick Queen certainly is a trade option even more now that we hear the press conference than even before. I think that he could go and fetch at a minimum a late round first or even a second or a late round first and or a second and a fourth, something like that, because he is a valuable commodity as a linebacker who can run and hit and is super young and has basically 3 full years of experience in the league. And so I think that he could certainly be gone on draft night. I don't think he'll be gone before draft night, but I certainly think that a trade is pending for one Patrick Queen, which I think is a bad idea. I think that if they're not going to sign Lamar, and I've said this before, if they're not going to sign Lamar to a deal, okay, and they're going to trade him, and we've said before, you don't build a team through free agency. You kind of solidify that team in free agency. You build it through the draft and retaining your own guys. And so Patrick Queen is one half of the best linebacking tandem in the whole league. And so if you're not going to pay your quarterback, keep that young guy, pair him with Roquan Smith for the next 4 or 5 years. You can afford that. You can afford to pay Patrick Queen um, if you're going to go inexpensive at the quarterback position. You'll go inexpensive at the wide receiver position. You'll go inexpensive at the running back position. You can afford to pay Patrick Queen because your money is still on the defensive side of the ball, and because there's no money right now to be spent offensively, because everything at this point is going to be um, bottom of the barrel at free agency if there's anything offensively out there, and then it's going to be draft picks, which will come super cheap. So why not solidify that defense if you're going to go young on offense? So I don't think it's a great decision to trade Patrick Queen at all, but I certainly believe it does happen because the Baltimore Ravens are in love with picks. And then the other trade asset is certainly Lamar Jackson, okay, which I've already spoken about a deal. Logically, seems like it should already be done because I think those are the only two assets. Because when you look at the other pieces that are valuable on the team, those contracts have too much dead money. When you look at Marlon Humphreys, can't move him, too much dead money. Marcus Williams, too much dead money if they moved him. Kyle Hamilton isn't going anywhere. He's a young stud. When you come down to the middle linebacker, pieces of value is Roquan and Patrick Queen. Well, we mentioned Patrick Queen. Roquan's not going anywhere. They just signed him to a deal. When you go down to that defensive front, you have a couple of young guys, Metabuke and Broderick Washington. They can come at a good price and be retained, I believe, um, over the next 12 months because they're both going to be free agents next year. Uh, so I don't really see them being traded. You don't have enough at edge rush to make a trade. Nobody's going to give up anything of value for Odafe, not right now because he's unproven. And then Ajabo, of course, is unproven. Tyus Bowers is coming off of a knee injury and won't be his full self probably until this season. So when you look at those guys I just mentioned, those notable names, those guys aren't movable. Okay. And then when you look at offense, Ronnie Stanley left tackle, but has an extensive injury history. So, and then he has too much dead cap money to move him. So you can't do anything with him. Linderbaum is not going anywhere. Morgan Moses, turnstile. So nobody's going to come out to him. And the only other piece that has great value is going to be like a Mark Andrews, which they're probably going to certainly keep because he's going to be beneficial if they go young at the quarterback position. So there's no other trade assets other than Queen and Lamar. So I do think one or both of those guys get moved on draft night. Okay. And then the last thing that I noticed is that they're really out of answers. I know that this liar's luncheon uh, is really supposed to give no information. Really, really, that's why it's called a liar's luncheon. It's supposed to not give any information. But what I really learned is that they don't have any answers. I think they have a lot of ideas, but no answers. They talked about the draft board being set by next Friday. I don't think that can be anything of certainty because you can't set a draft board if you don't have a quarterback. See, because not having a quarterback means you have to go quarterback at some point in that draft. Or do you take him up top? Do you take him in the third round? Do you trade back? So I don't think you can set a draft board like that. And so I think that I think the draft board won't be set until right before the draft. That's what I really believe. I think that at the wide receiver position, which was mentioned, quarterback position, which was mentioned, I think that they have more questions than answers, and so nothing seems to be of any certainty in Ravens Nation. That's why I was a proponent in probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. I did a video where I thought the Ravens need to take a more of an aggressive approach. This wait and see with Lamar had the potential to be detrimental. I think we're seeing that. This wait and see process with free agency seemed to be a bad idea, and I think that serves to be true. I think there's still some good talent out there, but I really wish they had been more aggressive because now coming into this press conference yesterday, I think they would have had a little more certainty about what was next for the Baltimore Ravens. And that's the biggest thing I take away. The future for the Ravens seemed to be more uncertain unless, like I mentioned yesterday, there is a deal done for Lamar Jackson trade. And then if there is a deal done, then we understand that they could certainly set a draft board. Okay. And I think the last thing is that we know they like cornerbacks. And so cornerback, I think, is really at play in that number 22 spot as well. Last thing I'll say is I think Anthony Richardson, I won't say he's a good fit for the Ravens necessarily. Only because at this point in time, he would be left scrambling for his life, which would slow down his development. If we're talking about quarterbacks, meaning if there is a trade, they were able to get Richardson. I can't say he's a good fit, only because the offensive line at this point has a lot of questions. Is Ronnie Stanley going to stay healthy to protect the blind side? Who's going to play left guard? Huge hole there left by Ben Powers. Um, is Morgan Moses, is he going to step up and solidify that right side, or is it going to be leaky like it was last year? And so, other than the tight ends um, and Bateman, who's going to be the weapons, Um, and so that's why I'm not going to say that Anthony Richardson is going to be the best option. A pro ready, somebody who's already ready for the pros, may be more beneficial for the Baltimore Ravens if they went quarterback in the first round, simply because a pro-ready quarterback may have a lot more productivity with an unproven receiving corpse. But a guy like Anthony Richardson, who is super athletic and can certainly rely on his feet, I think that he would end up running for his life more than he could stand in a pocket and learn defenses and things of that nature, which will certainly slow down his development by a few years. And so, would I love to see him in a Ravens uniform? Yes. Now I'm saying this not because it was part of the press conference. Just it's just my thought as it pertains to the quarterback conversation in the press conference. Would I like to see him in Baltimore? Yes. Could he be a Lamar Jackson 2.0 type? Yes. But I don't think he has uh the skill set at this point. Now let me be clear, he has a skill set that could rival Lamar Jackson's in some aspects, but Lamar came from college running a pro style offense and winning the Heisman, which showed he was already productive. We only saw 1 year of Anthony Richardson in Florida um, against now a top SEC conference, but he doesn't have the same level of experience as Lamar coming into the league. And so I think he would take a little more time to develop. And so that makes me nervous for a young quarterback to be behind a leaky offensive line and a less than adequate receiving corps, um, and expect him to develop and carry an offense. So that's my take, man. You guys let me know what you want me to know. Um, Tell me some things you saw and some things you heard from the press conference. Listen, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys, just hanging out with us, man. Thank you guys for, bringing good insight, good perspective to the comment section. Thank you guys for hanging out with the channel. Uh, our growth has been, super surprising for me to kind of be over 300 subscribers and in just a short period of time, and it's all to you. It has really nothing to do with me. It's all you guys being willing to plug in to what we're doing here, and I appreciate that. Listen, I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.